The 72 hours passed quickly. On Earth and throughout the solar system, humanity prepared. Ships that had been in dock for repairs launched early. Weapons platforms that had been in testing went fully operational. Pilots who had been on leave were called back to duty. The entire human race held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Captain Daniel Cross stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the sensors as 3 alien ships approached Earth. They were larger than before, more impressive, clearly meant to intimidate. The Council was sending a message with these ships alone. "They're hailing us," Patricia Hayes reported from her station. "They want to come aboard." "Let them," Daniel said. "We have something to tell them face to face." The 3 aliens materialized in the Defiance's diplomatic bay. The room was large, designed for meetings with other species. Today it held more than just diplomats. 20 human Marines stood at attention in full combat gear, their weapons held ready. They were not pointing them at the aliens, but the message was clear. Humanity was not defenseless. The Vethric from before was there along with 2 others. One was a creature that looked like it belonged underwater, with smooth skin that glistened and large eyes. This was a Nomari. The third was insect-like, with multiple arms and a hard shell. This was a krill. Together they represented the 3 most powerful species in the Galactic Council. "Captain Cross," the Vethric said, its voice carrying that same confident tone as before. "We have returned to accept your surrender and begin the process of integrating Earth into the Council's protection." Daniel stood with his hands behind his back, his expression neutral. Vincent Shaw stood on his right, Patricia Hayes on his left. Both of his officers wore their dress uniforms, medals shining under the lights. They looked every bit the professional military officers they were. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding," Daniel said calmly. "We're not surrendering. We're declining your ultimatum." The 3 aliens looked at each other. Their translation devices must have been working correctly, but they seemed unable to process what they had heard. The Nomari spoke next, its voice bubbling and strange even through the translator. "You decline?" it asked. "This is not a negotiation. The Council has made its decision. All species must submit to Council authority. This is how the galaxy works." "That's where you made your first mistake," Vincent Shaw said, stepping forward. "You assumed we would follow your rules. You assumed we would accept your authority. You assumed we were like every other species you've bullied into submission." Patricia activated a holographic display behind them. It showed the solar system, but not as the aliens had seen it before. Now hundreds of ships were visible, moving into defensive positions. Weapon platforms on Mars glowed red, indicating they were armed and ready. Orbital stations around Earth bristled with missiles and energy weapons. "This is what humanity prepared while you gave us your ultimatum," Patricia said. "Every ship, every weapon, every soldier ready to defend our home." The Krill envoy, who had been silent until now, made a clicking sound that the translator turned into words. "You would threaten the Galactic Council? You are one species against an alliance of hundreds. This is foolish." "This is suicide, is it?" Daniel asked. He walked closer to the aliens, his eyes hard. "Let me tell you something about humans. We've been fighting since before we had language. We've survived ice ages, plagues, and predators that wanted to eat us. We've fought each other in wars that killed millions, and we learned from every single one." He gestured to the display. "You call us primitive. You say we're too violent. But you know what? We're violent because we've had to be. We're warriors because our world made us that way. And every war, every battle, every fight taught us something new about how to survive." Vincent took over. "While your council was keeping peace, we were learning war. While you were negotiating, we were innovating. While you were comfortable in your power, we were preparing for exactly this moment. The moment when someone would try to take our freedom." The Vethric tried to regain control of the conversation. "You cannot stand against the full might of the Council. We have technology beyond your understanding. We have resources you cannot match. Resistance is pointless." "Pointless?" Patricia smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You want to talk about technology? Let me show you something." She pulled up another display. "This is a kinetic accelerator. It fires solid projectiles at a fraction of the speed of light. Your energy shields are designed to stop lasers and plasma. They're useless against a chunk of metal moving at that speed." She switched to another image. "These are our missiles. Each one has an artificial intelligence that can learn and adapt during flight. Your point defense systems won't know how to stop them, because they change their approach with every attempt you make. And this Vincent added, showing a schematic of a human fighter, is flown by a pilot who has trained in both atmosphere and space since they were teenagers. Our pilots don't just know how to fly. They know how to fight in 3 dimensions. They think in ways your automated systems can't predict. Daniel held up a small data chip. This contains humanity's official response to the Galactic Council. You will take it back to your leaders. You will make sure they read every word, and you will tell them exactly what you saw here. The Vethric reached out and took the chip, its crystalline fingers hesitant. What does it say? It says that humanity recognizes the Galactic Council exists, Daniel explained. It says we're willing to talk, to negotiate, to find a peaceful solution. But it also says that we will never surrender. We will never bow. We will never give up our freedom because someone else thinks they know what's best for us. And if the Council decides to enforce its decision, the Nomari asked. Then you'll learn what happens when someone tries to enslave humanity, Patricia said flatly. You'll learn why we're called warriors. You'll learn why every war in our history, no matter how terrible, made us stronger. You'll learn that some species would rather die fighting than live on their knees. Vincent stepped forward, his voice dropping low. Do you know what humanity's greatest strength is? It's not our weapons, though they're impressive. It's not our ships, though they're fast. It's not even our willingness to fight. It's our refusal to quit. You can knock us down and we'll get back up. You can hurt us and we'll keep coming. You can win a battle and we'll win the war. Because we never ever give up. The krill made an agitated sound. This is insanity. Your response to the Council's mercy is war? No, Daniel said firmly. Our response to your ultimatum is laughter. Because the idea that you could make humanity surrender with threats is honestly funny. But if you try to enforce your demands, if you try to take our freedom by force, then yes. You'll see what 8 billion angry humans can do when you threaten everything they hold dear. He gestured to the Marines standing at attention. These men and women have sworn to protect Earth. Behind them are millions more just like them. Behind those millions are billions of civilians who will support them. You're not facing one military. You're facing an entire species that has never accepted defeat. The 3 aliens stood in silence, processing what they had heard. Finally, the Vethric spoke. The Council will not accept this defiance. They cannot. If one species refuses, others may follow. The entire structure of galactic governance would collapse. That's your problem, not ours, Vincent said. We didn't ask to be part of your council. We didn't ask for your protection. We were doing just fine on our own. You came to us with demands and we're telling you no. What happens next is up to you. Patricia added one final point. But understand this. If you come at us with force, we will respond with everything we have. Humanity has spent 50 years preparing for the day we might meet hostile aliens. We hoped for friends. We planned for enemies. Your council just became our enemy by trying to take our freedom. Daniel handed another chip to the Vethric. This one contains the specifications of just a few of our weapons systems. Nothing classified, nothing you couldn't figure out eventually. But it should give your council an idea of what they're facing. Study it carefully. Share it with your military commanders. Let them tell the council what it means to fight an enemy that has been at war for thousands of years. The 3 aliens took the chips and returned to their ships without another word. As their vessel departed, heading back toward council space, the crew of the Defiance watched in silence. Do you think they'll back down? Patricia asked quietly. Daniel shook his head. No, they can't. Their entire authority is based on the idea that everyone submits to them. If they let us refuse, their whole system falls apart. They'll come at us with everything they have. Good, Vincent said with a grim smile. Admiral Garrett has been wanting to test our new weapons in actual combat. Looks like she'll get her chance. On Earth, President Margaret Sullivan received a report of the meeting. She read it carefully, then looked at her military advisors. They're coming, she said simply. How long do we have? A week, maybe 2, Admiral Lisa Garrett estimated. They'll need to assemble their fleet, coordinate their forces. They'll want to make sure they bring enough ships to overwhelm us. Then we use that time, Margaret decided. Every ship armed and ready. Every defensive platform online. The holographic screen flickered to life on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Defiance. Captain Daniel Cross stood with his arms crossed, watching as the alien figure materialized before him. The creature was tall, made entirely of what looked like living crystal that glowed with a soft blue light. It called itself a Vethric, a member of the Galactic Council that ruled over hundreds of worlds. Daniel had seen many strange things since humanity reached the stars 50 years ago, but this was different. This was the first time the galaxy had officially contacted Earth. He had hoped it would be friendly. The look on his crew's faces told him they had hoped the same thing. The Vethric spoke, and the translation device turned its sounds into words humans could understand. I am Envoy Thalen of the Galactic Council. We have observed your species for 3 of your years. We have reviewed your history, your technology, and your behavior. The Council has made its decision. Lieutenant Patricia Hayes, who controlled the ship's weapons, leaned forward in her seat. She was a sharp woman with quick reflexes and an even quicker mind. Something about the alien's tone made her nervous. The Galactic Council has existed for 12,000 years, the Vethric continued. We maintain peace across 473 species in 82 star systems. We have rules that all species must follow. Your species, humanity, has been judged. Commander Vincent Shaw, Daniel's second in command, muttered under his breath. Here it comes. Humanity is too aggressive, the alien declared. Your history is filled with war. You fight each other constantly. You create weapons of terrible power. You cannot be trusted to exist without supervision. Therefore, the Galactic Council orders you to surrender all military vessels, dismantle all weapons, and accept our governance. You have 72 hours to comply with this order. The bridge went silent. Every crew member stared at the holographic alien in disbelief. Patricia's hand moved unconsciously toward her control panel. Vincent's jaw clenched tight. Daniel simply stared at the Vethric with an expression that could have been carved from stone. You want us to give up everything? Daniel asked quietly. Our ships, our weapons, our freedom? It is not a request, the Vethric replied. It is an order from the Council. All species must submit to Council authority. This is how peace is maintained. You have 3 days. The hologram vanished. The bridge remained silent for a long moment before Vincent let out a short, harsh laugh. They actually think we're going to surrender. They really think humanity is just going to roll over and accept slavery. Get me a connection to Earth Command, Daniel ordered, and someone wake up the president. She's going to want to hear about this. Below them, on the surface of Earth, similar messages were being delivered to every major government simultaneously. In Washington, London, Beijing, Moscow, and dozens of other capitals, leaders were receiving the same ultimatum. The aliens had made sure everyone heard their demand at the same time. President Margaret Sullivan was in the White House Situation Room within 20 minutes of receiving the alert. She was a tall woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many crises to panic easily. Around the table sat her military advisors, intelligence chiefs, and representatives from allied nations who had rushed to join the emergency video conference. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Margaret said slowly. Aliens we've never officially met before are ordering us to surrender everything we've built, everything we've fought for, and become their subjects. Do I have that right? General Raymond Price, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, nodded grimly. He was an old soldier with more combat experience than most people had years of life. That's exactly what they're saying, Madam President. They claim it's for our own good and for galactic peace. What do we know about them? Margaret asked. Admiral Lisa Garrett pulled up a display showing what little intelligence Earth had gathered. She was one of the best strategic minds in the military, and she had been preparing for something like this since the day humans first left the solar system. The Galactic Council controls a significant portion of this region of space. They have advanced technology, definitely beyond ours in some areas. But here's the interesting part. She highlighted several data points on her screen. They haven't fought a real war in over 3,000 years. They maintain what they call an enforcement fleet, but it's mainly used for intimidation. When they find a new species, they make demands like this one. Every species they've contacted has surrendered without a fight. Why? Margaret asked. Because the Council's technology makes them look invincible, Lisa explained. But looking invincible and being invincible are two very different things. They rely on overwhelming technological superiority to scare new species into submission. The thing is, they've never encountered a species like us. What makes us different? This question came from General Raymond Price. Lisa smiled, but it was not a happy smile. We're warriors, General. Humans have been fighting wars since we lived in caves. We've spent our entire history killing each other and learning from it. We've turned warfare into a science. Every conflict teaches us something new. The Council has forgotten how to fight because they haven't needed to in thousands of years. Another advisor spoke up. But they have hundreds of species and advanced technology. We're just one planet. One very angry, very stubborn, very well-armed planet. Vincent's voice came through the communication link from the Defiance. Sorry to interrupt, but Captain Cross wanted me to share something. We've been analyzing their ship. Their weapons are powerful, yes. Their shields are strong, yes. But their combat doctrine is ancient. They're not expecting anyone to fight back. Margaret leaned back in her chair, thinking. She looked around at the faces of the people who had dedicated their lives to protecting Earth. These were not people who scared easily. These were not people who surrendered. What are our chances if it comes to a fight? She asked directly. Admiral Lisa Garrett considered the question carefully. Honestly, unknown. Their technology is advanced, but so is ours in different ways. They have numbers, but we have experience. They have power, but we have desperation. A desperate human is the most dangerous thing in the universe. And if we surrender? Margaret asked. Then everything our ancestors fought for is gone, General Raymond Price said flatly. Every freedom, every right, every sacrifice made to build a better world. Gone. We become subjects of an alien government that doesn't understand us and doesn't care to. Margaret stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city beyond. Millions of people going about their lives, unaware that the future of humanity was being decided in this room. I took an oath to protect this nation and its people. But this is bigger than one nation. This is about the entire human race. She turned back to face the room. 72 hours, they said. That gives us 3 days to prepare. Admiral Garrett, I want every ship we have ready for combat. General Price, mobilize all defensive platforms. I want weapons online, shields up, and every pilot at their station. You're choosing to fight, one of the advisors asked nervously. I'm choosing not to surrender, Margaret corrected. There's a difference. Maybe they'll back down when they see we're serious. Maybe we can negotiate as equals instead of subjects. But if they try to force this, if they try to take our freedom by force, then yes, we fight. She looked at each person in the room. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and our own worst impulses. We've climbed from caves to stars through nothing but determination. I'll be damned if we give that up because some alien council thinks they know what's best for us. Admiral Lisa Garrett stood. I'll begin preparations immediately. We have 3 days to show them what humans do when someone threatens our freedom. As the meeting broke up and orders began flowing to military units around the world and throughout the solar system, Margaret returned to the window. Above her, beyond the atmosphere, human ships were moving into position. On the moon, on Mars, in orbital stations. Weapons that had been built just in case were being activated. The Galactic Council had given humanity an ultimatum. They had expected fear and submission. What they were about to get was something very different. They were about to learn that humans had a particular response to threats. Humanity was about to teach the galaxy an old lesson. Freedom is not given, it is earned. And it is defended. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. 473 species sat in stunned silence as High Chancellor Theron stood before them. His crystalline form dimmed with what might have been shame or simply exhaustion. The enforcement fleet has returned, Theron announced, his voice lacking its usual authority. Of the 300 ships we sent to enforce compliance, only 147 have returned. The rest were disabled, captured, or destroyed. The humans defeated us. The silence stretched for a long moment before chaos erupted. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others called for Theron's resignation. A few simply sat in shock, unable to process what they had heard. How is this possible? Ambassador Krell of the Nomari demanded, his voice cutting through the noise. They are one species. One small primitive species. We sent 300 warships. How could we lose? Counselor Zith of the Arathi stood slowly, his ancient form moving with deliberate care. Perhaps because we stopped listening. I warned that the humans were different. I suggested we approach them with respect rather than demands. But we were too confident in our power to hear wisdom. They used weapons we have not seen before, Fleet Commander Voss reported from where he stood near the center of the chamber. He had been required to attend this session, to explain his failure. Kinetic projectiles moving at tremendous speeds. Our shields could not stop them. Missiles with adaptive artificial intelligence that learned from our defenses. Pilots who flew with instincts our computers could not predict. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a note that few council members had heard from him before. Respect. But it was not just their weapons. It was their doctrine, their tactics, their entire approach to warfare. We have maintained peace for so long that we forgot what war truly is. The humans have never forgotten. They have been fighting each other for their entire history, and every war taught them something new. Another representative stood. Then we must gather more forces. We must strike them with overwhelming power before they can threaten other systems. With what forces? Theron asked bitterly. The enforcement fleet was our largest military asset. Half of it is gone. The humans have captured many of our ships and will study our technology. They have proven they can defeat us in open combat. What makes you think sending more ships would produce a different result? A transmission request came through from Earth. Theron hesitated, then accepted it. President Margaret Sullivan appeared as a hologram in the center of the chamber, her image visible to all representatives. Members of the Galactic Council, Margaret began, her voice calm and steady. Humanity did not seek conflict with you. We simply refused to surrender our freedom. You came to us with ultimatums and threats. We responded the only way we could. We defended ourselves. She paused, looking around at the assembled representatives. But we are not your enemies. We recognize that the galaxy is vast and that cooperation benefits everyone. What we will not accept is subjugation. What we will not tolerate is being treated as lesser beings who must submit to your authority simply because you say so. The image shifted to show Admiral Lisa Garrett. She held up a data device. We are transmitting detailed technical information about the weapons and tactics we used in battle. This is not a threat. This is a gesture of good faith. If humanity could develop these innovations, others can as well. Your monopoly on advanced technology has made you complacent. Complacency is dangerous, Margaret reappeared. We are offering the Council a new arrangement. Humanity will join your organization, but as equal partners, not subjects. We will share our knowledge and our innovations. We will participate in galactic affairs. We will contribute to peace and stability, but we will do so as free people who make our own choices. She leaned forward slightly, her expression serious. However, understand this clearly. Any species that attempts to subjugate humanity again will face the full measure of our capability. We have proven we can defend ourselves. We would much rather prove we can be valuable allies. The hologram faded, leaving the Council in contemplation. High Chancellor Theron looked around the chamber at representatives who seemed uncertain for the first time in their lives. The question before us is simple, Theron said quietly. Do we continue to insist on our old ways and risk further conflict with a species that has demonstrated remarkable military power? Or do we adapt as they have adapted and forge a new relationship based on mutual respect? Councillor Zith stood again. I propose we accept humanity's offer, not because they defeated us, though that is impossible to ignore, but because they have shown us something we lost long ago. They reminded us that peace maintained through force alone is not true peace. They showed us that some species value freedom more than safety. They proved that we had become arrogant in our power. They defeated our fleet and then treated our wounded, Zith continued. They captured our ships and then rescued our stranded crew members. They fought with ferocity but also with honor. These are not the actions of primitives. These are the actions of a mature civilization that understands both the necessity of war and the value of mercy. The debate lasted for hours. Some species argued for continued resistance. Others saw the wisdom in accepting change. Slowly, gradually, the tide turned. The humans had not just defeated the Council's fleet. They had defeated the Council's assumption that they were the ultimate authority in the galaxy. The vote, when it finally came, was not unanimous, but it carried. The Galactic Council would restructure itself to accommodate humanity as an equal member. Rules would be rewritten. Authority would be shared. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months passed. The solar system slowly returned to normal, though normal now meant something different. Human ships patrolled alongside Council vessels. Engineers from a dozen species worked together on joint projects. Diplomats negotiated treaties and trade agreements. Captain Daniel Cross stood on the bridge of the Defiance, which had been assigned to a joint exploration task force. Beside him stood Fleet Commander Voss, who had requested to serve with the humans to better understand the species that had changed everything he thought he knew about warfare. Your people continue to surprise us, Voss admitted. He had learned to speak some human languages, finding that the translation devices sometimes missed subtle meanings. You defeated us in battle, then offered mercy to our survivors. You could have destroyed us completely, but you chose restraint. Daniel smiled slightly. That's what makes us human, Commander. We're fierce when threatened, but we're not cruel. We fight for what we believe in, but we don't fight for the sake of fighting. We wanted freedom, not conquest. We wanted respect, not submission. And now? Voss asked. Now we explore together, Daniel replied, gesturing to the view screen that showed stars waiting to be discovered. Now we learn from each other. Now we build something better than what came before. The Council ruled through fear and overwhelming power. Maybe together we can build something that lasts through mutual respect and cooperation. On Earth, President Margaret Sullivan met with her advisors in the same command center, where they had directed humanity's defense. But today's meeting was about the future, not the past. The Council's observers are impressed with our military training, Admiral Lisa Garrett reported. Several species have requested permission to send their officers to our academies. They want to learn what we know about combat doctrine and tactical thinking. Approve it, Margaret decided. Let them learn. Let them see that strength isn't about oppressing others. It's about being prepared to defend what matters. Maybe if more species know how to fight properly, they'll be less likely to start wars they can't finish. General Raymond Price chuckled. Who would have thought? Humanity becomes a major power in the galaxy not by conquering anyone, but by refusing to be conquered. That's always been our way, Margaret said, looking at the display showing human and alien ships working together in orbit. We're stubborn. We adapt, we never give up. The Council ordered us to surrender and we laughed because we knew something they had forgotten. What's that, Madam President? A young aide asked. Margaret smiled. Freedom isn't given by those in power. It's earned by those who refuse to live without it. It's defended by people willing to fight for it. It's worth any sacrifice to maintain it. Humanity learned that lesson thousands of years ago in caves and deserts and frozen wastelands. We've been proving it ever since. She stood and walked to the window that showed the sky above. Every species in the Council submitted because they thought the cost of resistance was too high. But they never calculated the cost of surrender. They never asked themselves what it's worth to make your own choices, to control your own destiny, to live free. Admiral Lisa Garrett joined her at the window. And now? Now we show them, Margaret replied. We show them that a galaxy based on respect works better than one based on fear. We show them that cooperation between equals is stronger than obedience from subjects. We show them what humanity has always known. Freedom makes us strong. Unity makes us stronger. But freedom and unity together make us unstoppable. Throughout human space, people went about their lives with a new confidence. The battle lasted 6 hours. To the Galactic Council fleet, it felt like an eternity. To the humans, it was a demonstration of everything they had learned from thousands of years of warfare. Admiral Lisa Garrett commanded the defense from the EDS Washington, a massive battleship that served as the flagship for Earth's fleet. She sat in the command chair, watching dozens of displays that showed every aspect of the battle. Her voice remained calm and steady as she directed her forces. Strike Group Alpha, push forward and maintain pressure on their center. Beta Group, swing wide and hit their right flank. Charlie Group, hold position and prepare to intercept any retreat attempts. Every order was executed with precision. Human crews had trained for this moment, running simulations and exercises for years. They knew their ships, they knew their weapons, and most importantly, they knew how to work together. Captain Daniel Cross led Alpha Group deeper into the Council formation. The Defiance shook as enemy fire struck their shields, but the shields held. Human shield technology had been developed with the assumption that they would face superior numbers. They were designed to take punishment. Return fire, Daniel ordered. Patricia Hayes targeted a Vethric cruiser that was trying to coordinate the Council's defense. Kinetic rounds smashed into its shields, draining them with each impact. When the shields finally collapsed, she switched to precision strikes that disabled the ship's weapons and engines without destroying it. Target disabled, Captain, Patricia reported. Moving to next target. Commander Vincent Shaw monitored the tactical display. Their formation is collapsing. They're trying to retreat, but they're getting in each other's way. It was true. The Council fleet had arranged itself for intimidation, not combat. Now that they were under attack, their ships were too close together to maneuver effectively. When some tried to retreat, they found their own allies blocking their escape routes. From the asteroid belt, Captain Helen Price saw the opportunity. All ships accelerate to attack speed. We're going to cut them off from their jump points. Her destroyer group moved like sharks through water, fast and deadly. They positioned themselves between the Council fleet and the areas of space where ships could safely jump to faster than light speeds. Any Council ship that wanted to escape would have to go through the human blockade. A Nomari battleship tried to break through. It was massive, 3 times the size of Helen's destroyer, with weapons that could devastate a city. But size meant nothing if you couldn't hit your target. The Sherman and her sister ships danced around the battleship, too fast for its weapons to track. They hammered it with missiles and kinetic rounds until its shields failed and its engines went dark. Another one disabled, Helen reported to Admiral Garrett, tagging it for recovery teams. Throughout the battle, humanity followed strict rules of engagement. Disable enemy ships when possible, accept surrenders immediately, provide aid to damaged vessels, show the Council that humans could be fierce warriors but were not monsters. Colonel Peter Grant's fighter wings were proving devastatingly effective. Human pilots had an advantage that Council forces couldn't match. They had grown up on a planet with atmosphere, learning to fly in 3 dimensions from a young age. They understood air combat, space combat, and how to transition between the two. Their instincts were honed by evolution and training. Lieutenant Karen Foster led her squadron through a formation of Council fighters. The alien pilots flew in predictable patterns, following doctrine that was thousands of years old. Karen and her pilots flew like they were born in space, constantly changing speed and direction, never where the enemy expected them to be. Phoenix 2, break left and cover Phoenix 5, Karen called out. Phoenix 7, you've got a krill fighter on your 6. I'm coming around. She pulled her fighter through a maneuver that would have been impossible for Council pilots. Their ships were fast, but they couldn't handle the rapid direction changes without injuring their crews. Human inertial dampening allowed pilots to push their ships to the limit without blacking out. The krill fighter exploded under her weapons fire. Karen felt a moment of regret, but she pushed it aside. She had tried to disable it, but the pilot had refused to break off. Some Council crew members were learning quickly that humans were serious. Others were learning too slowly. Fleet Commander Voss watched his fleet being systematically destroyed from the bridge of the Cosmic Justice. His officers shouted reports that all sounded like bad news. Port shields failing. We need to rotate. Enemy fighters are targeting our weapons arrays. We've lost 60% of our offensive capability. 3 more ships requesting permission to surrender. Their life support is failing. Voss felt something he had never experienced in his entire military career. Fear. Not fear of death, but fear of the terrible realization that he had led his fleet into a battle they could not win. The humans were not primitive. They were not weak. They were warriors who had perfected the art of combat while the Council had forgotten it even existed. All ships, Voss transmitted, his voice heavy with defeat. Ceasefire. Prepare to surrender. But before the order could be fully transmitted, Admiral Lisa Garrett's voice came through on all Council frequencies. Council forces, this is Admiral Garrett of the Earth Defense Fleet. We are prepared to accept your surrender under the following terms. Power down your weapons. Lower your shields. Prepare to be boarded for inspection. Any ship that complies will be treated according to military law and the rights of prisoners. Any crew members requiring medical attention will receive it. We are not your enemies unless you force us to be. The words shocked many Council officers. They had expected destruction or humiliation. Instead, they were being offered honorable surrender and medical care. It was more mercy than they had shown many species they had encountered. Slowly, Council ships began powering down their weapons. Shields dropped. The battle, for all practical purposes, was over. On Earth, President Margaret Sullivan watched the tactical display as the last Council ship surrendered. General Raymond Price stood beside her, his expression a mixture of relief and grim satisfaction. Casualties? Margaret asked quietly. Final count is still coming in, Raymond replied, but preliminary reports suggest less than 300 human casualties across the entire fleet. Enemy losses are significantly higher. Over 100 of their ships disabled or destroyed. Many more damaged, and prisoners, thousands. We're bringing them aboard our medical ships now. Those who are injured are being treated alongside our own wounded. Margaret nodded. Make sure they're treated well. I want the Council to know that we fight hard, but we fight honorably. We're not the monsters they thought we were. Admiral Lisa Garrett's image appeared on the main screen. Madam President, the battle is over. We've achieved complete tactical victory. The Council fleet is in full retreat. Those that can't escape are surrendering. Well done, Admiral, Margaret said. Begin recovery operations. I want every survivor rescued, every piece of technology cataloged, and every damaged ship secured. And Lisa, make sure our people know how proud I am of them." Captain Daniel Cross opened a wide broadcast channel that every council ship would receive. His voice was calm, but carried an edge of steel that made his words impossible to ignore. "This is Captain Daniel Cross of the Earth Defense Ship Defiance, to Fleet Commander Voss and all council forces. Take a message back to your High Chancellor. Tell him that humanity does not surrender. Tell him that humanity does not bow. Tell him that humanity fights for its freedom and will never stop fighting. Tell him that if he wants peace with Earth, he will treat us as equals, not subjects." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But also tell him this. We took no pleasure in this battle. We offered mercy to your wounded. We accepted your surrender with honor. We are warriors, yes, but we are not cruel. We want peace. We want cooperation. We want to be part of the galactic community. But we will only join as free people, never as slaves." Throughout the solar system, human ships began the long process of securing the battlefield. Recovery teams moved through the debris, searching for survivors from both sides. Medical ships treated the wounded without regard to species. Engineers worked to stabilize damaged council vessels before they could become tombs for their crews. Lieutenant Patricia Hayes supervised the recovery of a damaged Nomari ship. Its life support was failing and its crew was in danger. Human engineers risked their own safety to board the ship and repair its systems, saving the lives of beings who had come to conquer Earth hours before. "Why?" one of the Nomari crew members asked through a translator, confusion evident in its voice. "Why save us? We came to subjugate you." Patricia looked at the alien with simple honesty. "Because you're no longer a threat. Because you need help. Because we're better than our worst moments. We fight when we have to, but we don't kill when we don't need to. That's what makes us human." The Nomari had no response to that. It simply watched as human engineers saved its ship and its crew. In the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Margaret Sullivan allowed herself a moment to breathe. The battle was over. Humanity had won. But she knew this was just the beginning. "What happens now?" General Raymond Price asked. Margaret looked at the stars on the display. "Now we see if the Council has learned anything." The Galactic Council met an emergency session aboard their grand station called Celestial Throne. The station orbited Vethros Prime, the capital world of the Vethric species, and served as the seat of power for the entire Council. The chamber was massive, designed to hold representatives from all 473 member species at once. Today, every seat was filled. The news from Earth had spread quickly through Council space. For the first time in recorded history, a species had refused to submit to Council authority. More than that, they had laughed at the ultimatum and prepared for war. High Chancellor Theron stood at the center of the chamber. He was old even for a Vethric, having led the Council for over 2 centuries. In all that time, he had never faced a challenge like this. Every species he had encountered had taken one look at Council power and accepted their place. The humans were different. "The situation is unprecedented," Theron announced, his crystalline voice echoing through the chamber. "The humans have rejected our authority. They have mocked our ultimatum. They have threatened violence if we attempt to enforce compliance. This cannot stand." Ambassador Krell of the Nomari Collective rose from his seat. "Then we show them the error of their ways. We assemble the enforcement fleet. We demonstrate the full might of the Council. They will see that resistance is futile and accept our terms." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Most species present had submitted peacefully to the Council. They had accepted that resistance was pointless against such overwhelming power. Why should the humans be any different? But one voice spoke against the majority. Councillor Zith of the Erathi, a species known for philosophy and careful thought, stood slowly. "Perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The humans have shown significant military preparation. Their history demonstrates remarkable resilience and adaptability. Perhaps dialogue would serve us better than force." The chamber erupted in dismissive sounds, clicks, bubbles, harmonic tones, all expressing disbelief that anyone would suggest backing down. "They are one species," someone shouted. "We are hundreds. They control one star system," another added. "We command 82. "The mathematics are clear," a third voice called out. "They cannot win." High Chancellor Theron raised his hands for silence. "Councillor Zith speaks from caution, and caution has its place. But the Council's authority must be maintained." If we allow one species to defy us, others may follow. The peace we have maintained for thousands of years could crumble. He turned to address the full assembly. I call for a vote. Do we enforce our decision and bring the humans into compliance, or do we negotiate with them as equals? The vote was overwhelming. Only a handful of species, the Arathi among them, voted for negotiation. The rest demanded enforcement. The Council's will was clear. Very well, Theron said. Summon Fleet Commander Voss. Tell him to assemble the enforcement fleet. The humans will learn that the Council's word is law. Fleet Commander Voss was a Krill military officer with decades of experience. He had resolved 47 compliance incidents during his career, bringing rebellious colonies and defiant species back into the fold. He had never fired a shot in anger. The sight of the enforcement fleet had always been enough to convince anyone that resistance was pointless. He studied the data about the humans carefully. Their history was violent, yes. They had weapons, certainly, but they were one species against the might of the Council. The numbers were absurdly in his favor. Within 10 days, the enforcement fleet assembled at the staging point. 300 warships from a dozen different species converged, representing the largest military force the Council had mobilized in over 1,000 years. The ships were impressive, ranging from massive battleships to sleek cruisers. Each one carried weapons that could level a city, or shields that could withstand tremendous punishment. Voss stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive Krill dreadnought called the Cosmic Justice. Around him, his officers monitored the fleet as it prepared to jump to Earth's solar system. Everything was proceeding according to plan. All ships report ready, his tactical officer announced. Excellent, Voss replied. Commence jump sequence. We will emerge at the edge of their solar system and proceed to Earth. When they see our fleet, they will understand that resistance is impossible. The fleet jumped together, tearing through space in ways that bent reality itself. They emerged exactly where planned, at the outer edge of Earth's solar system. Immediately, their sensors began cataloging human ships. Initial count shows approximately 100 human vessels, the sensor officer reported. They are maintaining defensive positions throughout the system. Voss studied the display with satisfaction. 100 against 300. They must see now that they cannot win. He opened a communication channel that broadcast to Earth and every human ship. This is Fleet Commander Voss of the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet. You have exhausted the time for discussion. Surrender now, or we will be forced to disable your military assets and occupy your system by force. On Earth, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Margaret Sullivan stood in the command center that would coordinate humanity's defense. Around her were Admiral Lisa Garrett, General Raymond Price, and dozens of other officers who would direct the coming battle. 300 ships, Margaret observed, watching the sensor displays. They certainly brought numbers. Admiral Lisa Garrett studied the enemy formation with the practiced eye of someone who had spent a lifetime learning warfare. Look at their positioning. They're arranged for show, not combat. Their formation is ceremonial. They're not even maintaining proper combat spacing. General Raymond Price nodded in agreement. They think they're at a parade inspection, not a battle. They're used to everyone surrendering at the sight of their fleet. Margaret straightened her shoulders. She had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but humanity was ready. Then we show them what happens when they underestimate humans. Admiral, you may engage at your discretion. Lisa allowed herself a small smile. All ships, this is Admiral Garrett. The word is given. Show them what we've prepared. Throughout the solar system, a transformation occurred. Ships that had been running silent, hiding behind asteroids and planetary bodies, suddenly activated. Stealth systems that had kept them hidden from Council sensors shut down, revealing their presence. What the Council had counted as 100 ships was actually over 500. On the bridge of the Cosmic Justice, Fleet Commander Voss watched in growing alarm as his sensor display filled with new contacts. How many ships do they have? Where did they all come from? His sensor officer worked frantically at his console. Commander, they were using some form of stealth technology. Our sensors couldn't detect them until they activated their power systems. Voss felt the first stirring of uncertainty. The humans had hidden half their fleet? That level of deception suggested military thinking far more sophisticated than he had anticipated. All ships, battle formation. Prepare to engage. But the Council fleet was in the wrong position. They had arranged themselves to look impressive, not to fight. As they tried to reorganize into a proper combat formation, the human ship struck. Captain Daniel Cross commanded the first wave. The Defiance and 20 other ships accelerated toward the Council fleet at speeds that made Voss's tactical officer's eyes widen in shock. "Commander, their acceleration profiles are impossible. They should be crushing their crews with that much force." But the humans had solved inertial dampening through different principles than the Council used. Their ships could accelerate harder, turn faster, and maneuver more aggressively than Council doctrine thought possible. "All ships prepare to fire," Daniel ordered calmly. Patricia Hayes had her hands on the weapon controls. Her eyes focused on the targeting display. "Target the lead ships. Show them we're serious." The Defiance and her sister ships opened fire. Solid projectiles, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic fields, shot across space toward the Council fleet. The Council ships raised their shields, confident that their energy barriers would protect them. They were wrong. The kinetic projectiles slammed into the shields with devastating force. The shields, designed to disperse energy weapons, couldn't handle the sheer momentum of physical objects moving at such tremendous speeds. 3 Council ships went dark immediately. Their shields collapsed, their hulls breached, their systems failing. "Impossible," Voss whispered. "Their weapons are primitive projectiles. Our shields should stop them easily." His science officer was already analyzing the data. "Commander, the projectiles are moving at 3% light speed. The kinetic energy is overwhelming our shield generators. They're not using energy weapons at all. They're using physics." From the asteroid belt, another group of human ships appeared. These were smaller, faster, and they moved with a coordination that spoke of extensive training and experience. They dove through the Council formation, their weapons tearing into ships that couldn't turn fast enough to track them. Captain Helen Price commanded this group from her destroyer, the Sherman. "All ships target their weapons and engines. Disable them. Don't destroy them unless necessary." Her orders reflected humanity's rules of engagement. They were here to defend themselves, not commit genocide. Missiles streaked from the human ships,